All right. Hey, Rick. How are you? Hope you're well.
I'm always good.
That's good to hear. I've been having a bit of a think about how to introduce you. Clearly, I've known you for quite a long time. Um, so I've known you as a journalist, kind of a TV guy, sports media guy, sports team media guy, sports GM, producer, executive producer, events manager, events placeholder, lots and lots of different things. But what I think probably best describes you from my perspective is a media entrepreneur. Um, so that's kind of the best thing I could come up with. Kind of keen to hear your origin story, just how you got to where you are and where you are now, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, the first thing to establish is I'm pretty strange. Um, like I'm quite a weird person, so I have a different lens on the world. Um, and I worked out a while ago that it's too much energy for me to try and pretend to fit in. So it's so much easier just to relax and be myself and not fit in anywhere. So, which was always, you know, a fun place to be when you're in a team environment like the All Blacks in the 80s, which is the ultimate sort of like fit in or die. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I've always really enjoyed being different, being a bit more upside down to the world. So, I sort of, I fell into journalism. I didn't even know what it was. I just applied. Um, and I I sort of and I failed at journalism school because I got into so much trouble. I got arrested my first week at journalism school, um, at a cricket game. So I I've always enjoyed storytelling and I've always enjoyed performing. And journalism seemed to be a good place to start on that journey.
Um, I kind of as I've kind of thought about chatting with you, looking back, it's kind of like I was never quite sure whether how deliberate you were. It's kind of like, and I think back to a recent discussion we had. We were talking about the reincarnation of Sports Cafe, and I was like, that's a good idea. I'll talk to my manager about the GM and whatever at the time, and then I turn around next week and it's already on air, being sponsored by the company I was working for. So I'm never quite sure how strategic you've been, or how deliberate you are. What would you say to that?
Um, I'm not quite as stupid as I look, which and what's quite funny, particularly in New Zealand, is um when I go into meetings, people quite often see the guy that they watch doing Sports Cafe on TV. So they sort of see that guy, and they they don't realize that there's obviously a huge part of truth to that, but that's a bit of a character I play. It's a bit of a wind up. Um, yeah, I actually am very strategic. I'm a deep thinker, and so often things look like they're off the cuff. And look, I'm quite, I'm half Italian, so I'm pretty spontaneous. Um, but I think deeply about, yeah, I really think deeply around media strategy. That's something that really fascinates me, the changing world of media. And always just trying to be at the front of it rather than the back of it. And, a great example is when we did the good, the bad, and the rugby in like 1989. We did it as a VHS, and there weren't even VHS selling distribution networks when we did it. They came later. So the only place you could buy it was at bookshops or service stations, because we decided, John Kerwin and I decided that the rugby books were sort of going out of style and you could replace them with a video and people would buy that. And so I think we sold like 150,000, something ridiculous. Um, but there was no
Yeah.
distribution network, and we had no idea what we were doing. Same with just thinking it through with Sports Cafe. When I started Sports Cafe, um, everyone sort of turned me down, but we quite liked the idea of doing it on Sky. And at that stage, when we did the when we agreed terms with Sky, they only had 70,000 subscribers, and they didn't have any rugby rights. Um, but we just sort of, well, I just sort of felt that Sky was going to be the dominant force in sport, and you know, like 6 months later, they got the rugby rights and they took off.
So uh, one of the things that I was really keen to talk to you about is, and it's kind of like the thesis of my newsletter and things like that, gatekeepers, things changing, people pivoting, and obviously I have a real interest in the media, and that's kind of what's happening in this space. And I'm seeing independent media starting to take a real hold in people's imagination, and it's like it's building like its own space compared to legacy or mainstream media. So how do you view that?
It's absolutely the truth. And so when we, you and I are both old, Alan, and so when we started, I mean, go back to Good, the Bad, and the Rugby. When I did that, I had a truckload full of equipment, and the barrier of entry into making content was really, really high because it costs so much money. So few people were allowed that opportunity. And, obviously now, we can do more with a cell phone than we can do with a truckload of equipment from the 80s. And so what's happened is more and more people are being able to make content, obviously, but the world is changing. Like every month, there's a different way of making content, of posting content. You know, even Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they're changing their algorithms every couple of weeks. And so you've got to be really, really, really agile. You've got to have that ability to constantly change. And that's really, really hard if you're a massive legacy media organization, that has got millions and millions of dollars invested in the way you operate. So the good thing about being independent and being small is having that ability to change constantly. So when you're and one of the hard things I've really noticed that, spending time in Sydney, the media companies here are so big and powerful, Murdoch,
Yeah.
Packer, etc. And they've done such an amazing job for such a long time, really created some great programs and stuff. But it's hard to change because if you've got a successful model, it's really hard. You want to hold on to that. Look at Sky. They held on to their model for as long as they possibly could because it was really successful and it was making them lots of money. But when you're a small independent, you're changing all the time. And that's how the market is now. 1 minute you can do something on Instagram and then they work out you're making too much money. So they change the rules. And so you've got to change the way you approach it. Then suddenly TikTok changes their algorithm and YouTube starts promoting things differently. And you just got to be on top of that all the time. And it helps being small and agile.
One of the things I think about in that space is, all those changes, the independent media, everything changes really, really quickly. One of the things I think is becoming more and more important is trust. So that if you can build trust with an audience, they'll follow you to wherever you are. It's kind of like so rather than desperately trying to engage in views and likes, which is engagement or short-term engagement, if you can build trust and build a community around that, you can take your content anywhere. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, trust is everything. I it's a sacred relationship, your relationship with the audience, and particularly if it's a long-term audience. I remember once saying, when I was doing the TV show, saying at the end of the year, okay, that's it. We're not doing Sports Cafe anymore. Thank you very much. And I just got bombarded by people going, who the hell do you think you are? Like that's our decision. Like we're the audience. We'll tell you when it's time to stop. Um, so and because if you got that trust, it's like clickbait's a really interesting thing, because obviously you're using lots of clickbait and thumbnails and trying to get people's attention. But if you do it in such a way that, you try and hook them in and then you don't deliver what you say you're going to deliver, you're breaking that trust and people don't respond well to that. So, one of the things in YouTube is really important. If you say you're going to have something in the show, you better damn well have it and you better have it pretty early, like 10 seconds in, because if you hook an audience person in to watch something, they trust you. And if you don't deliver what you said you're going to deliver, then you've lost that trust forever.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, One of the things I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I watch a lot of podcasts, And one of the things I've really started noticing is it's kind of like, so probably an easier way to say this, the cost of production in podcasts is so much lower than in, say, mainstream media like your Channel 9 or, whatever, whether it be TVNZ or CNN even, for example. But the quality of the podcasts and their production values, it has risen quite substantially. One of the things I'm always surprised at is how many people watch podcasts on YouTube. It blows my mind, but because I don't. But with the means of the cost of production being so low, I wonder if there's a point where the mainstream media starts buying in that content. Like if you look at, say, cable in America, I'll pick CNN as an example, a lot of the day is the same thing, but in a different show. But it costs a fortune. The anchors, the studio crew, it's really expensive. Whereas they could pick up a variety of podcasts, play them in those slots for a fraction of the cost and reach the audience that they're actually struggling to get.
Well, a couple of things there. So YouTube is now the number one location for podcasts. It's where people consume podcasts the most. And therefore, you've got to put some effort into how you look and how you present visually. But to your point, it's actually happened. So Netflix has just done a deal to sign,
Spotify,
all their top podcasts. So, that is a sign, the biggest content platform in the world, on TVs and etc., visual, is saying we want to get the best podcasts that have got a visual performance. And for me, that's a seismic shift. That's exactly, because Netflix are a leader in this space. So, if they can do it, why wouldn't CNN do it, And CNN, use them as an example. They've got two options. One is they can either do it themselves or get the best ones in. And, ultimately in media, what people pay for is the size of your audience that you can influence. That's the currency. So an advertiser will go to you and go, I want to give you some money to promote my product because you have a large audience and you can influence them. So, I could see CNN sort of going, geez, look at that podcast. It's got such a massive audience. Our
and the
one's
right
got,
demos too.
yeah. So, I don't know, use Joe Rogan as an example. Let's go, man, why don't we just buy Joe Rogan, because he's got a massive audience and, it's a hard to reach demo of sort of men probably 25 to 50, and
Yeah.
so we can just give him $20 million and suddenly we've got access to that audience.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's an interesting space. I guess if I'm thinking about what kind of the audience I'm trying to reach is, it's kind of like 45, 50-year-olds that have kind of got to a point in their career and that's may have been accidentally where they end up, but they're trying to think more deliberately about where they want to go. And once again, having an interest in media. Um, how do you keep looking forward to keep changing? I mean, it's really easy to get stuck, and we know so many people, I guess, that get stuck where they are.
I like sort of out of necessity. Like I, no one ever gives me a job. No one ever gives me money to make stuff. Like, out of the stuff that I've made, probably 80% of it, 90% of it has been sort of, self-motivated, work for myself. And that's just because no one else wants to give me a go. So, which when I came back from the US, I thought, oh, that's a bit strange. Like I've got not a bad CV, but there's no opportunities. So, bugger it, I'll just do it myself.
I guess that the thing there, though, which maybe makes you slightly unique, is um, you say yes, I'll bugger it, I'm going to do it myself. But you already have years of experience behind you and lots of skills. Lots of people are in a similar position, but they just don't have that little jump to bugger it, I'll do it myself. Maybe that's something you carry uniquely. But what do you think is what do you think would help people do that? To do that,
You know,
sorry.
you know what's been really helpful for me is just having people around me like JK and Mark Ellis, etc. Who having people around you that believe in you. Um, so going a few years back, someone I'd pitch an idea and they'd go, get turned down by everyone, and JK would say to me, "Oh, let's just do it. Why don't we just do it?" You know, and and Mac is the same. It's like you know, um, if I'm sort of like thinking about an approach and trying to seek approval from someone so they'll give me some money or, playing that game. And you'll get someone like Mac who's like, oh, we don't need anyone. Let's just do it ourselves. So it's just having people around you that believe in you. I mean, I've been really fortunate to have people like that in my life who have given me the confidence, because sometimes it's hard to find it yourself.
Yeah. One
You
of the
just,
things when I was thinking about that intro and stuff earlier, I was kind of like another thing I think about what you do, and along with trying to keep ahead of the game and always coming up with new and cool ideas, is you've carried those relationships for a really long time,
yeah.
and I've never been particularly good at that, and I think that's a real skill and something that's real. You've actually done very well. What do you think enables you to do that?
But I can still remember the moment I met JK at school, where I was a seventh former, he was a fifth former, and he came up to me and he's like, I'm thinking of trying out for the first 15. And I'd been in the first 15 for a couple of years. And I'm like, in a patronizing way, going, yeah, good on you, mate. Have a crack, all the best, because
Yeah.
I was the seventh form prefect for his year. And, um, and he came to our first 15 and he was a halfback, and I was number 8. And but because, when you're in seventh form and you sort of always think fifth form is inferior, you just naturally do. Um, And then ever since that conversation, we're stuck with each other, you know, for 150 years. And then Macca used to sit behind me when I worked for the All Blacks. Macca used to sit behind me on the bus, and I used to sit next to Sean Fitzpatrick. And Macca, being a new boy, was at the front of the bus. And Sean and I were just in hysterics the whole time, just listening to him. He used to sit next to Matthew Cooper, who's now the president of New Zealand Rugby, and he just used to just take the piss out of Matthew, just constantly. And sometimes we'd be on like 5-hour bus trips. I don't know. Matthew had such a thick skin. It was just constant needling abuse. And he is such a funny human being. And so when you get the chance to meet great people, you just want to keep them into your life. You want to connect with them, and they're two of the best people I know. And and I just, when I'm having a tough time, you know, they're the ones that will give me a ring. When I'm having doubts about whether I'm any good at what I do, they're the ones that will remind me to trust myself. So, as you get older, you get less and less people in your life.
Yeah.
But the good thing is you're just holding on to the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, although having said that, I do think that a lot of people atrophy in that space. And if you want to stay relevant, you've kind of got to keep looking out for not discarding old people, but you've got to keep looking out for new people as
Yep.
well. And I
Yep.
assume that's actually something you've done pretty well too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky in that JK and Mac are both completely unusual people as well, and have different ways of looking at the world. So that works well with me. But I like to collect people. I love bumping into people and going, "Shit, you're amazing. I need to keep you in my life."
Yeah.
And I I did 4 years in New York, met some amazing people, and you don't want to let them go, because they make
Yeah.
you better,
Yeah.
and they challenge you and they come up with ideas that you never thought of, and they've got a different way of looking at the world. Um, yeah, people are, when you think about it, the people around you are the ones that inspire you. So you may as well get great people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think that's something that gets particularly more, or gets more difficult as we get older. We get a bit rigid and less likely to meet new people, and I think that can be a real failings, particularly if you want to keep, if you still aspire to things. Yeah, if you still want to achieve things, you've got to do that. I think.
Mate, I'm I'm a bit, yeah, I'm in my 60s, but I'm really mentally 23.
Yeah,
So I behave like a 23-year-old. So my eyes are wide open. I was like, oh my God, the world's amazing.
yeah,
You know, so fortunately I haven't got old yet. So I'm still behaving. I'm still getting excited every time I meet someone interesting.
yeah. Um. So I guess th- so you probably get two groups of people that come to you. I imagine you get some younger people that come to you and say, "Hey, I love Sports Cafe or whatever it is you're doing, and I really want to get involved. How do I get into this business?" And then there's probably also, the group that probably speaking to a bit more is they're kind of at a point in a career where they're looking for a change, but they still want to use the same skills. They still want to get into media or whatever it is. What would you tell first the younger group, and then secondly the older group?
Well, it's funny because, I mean, lots of people, will give you a call. I catch up with someone yesterday and they're like, how do we do this? How do we make this successful? But when the young people, they're like, "Oh, I used to do Sports Cafe. My dad used to love that,"
Yeah,
so which is such a great leveler. It's like, far out. Because, as I said, I think I'm 23, and then you get reminded,
yeah,
by
yeah.
a 23-year-old that you're not.
You're not.
Um, but I love helping people. I love, like, one of the most important things in my career is helping people achieve their potential, in the media. That's the thing I love most of all. That's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is just seeing all these people that I've worked with just take off. And so, I'll always do that because I get frustrated when people don't answer my calls or emails, or when people don't help me. So I don't want to do that to other people because that
Yeah,
would be hypocritical. Um, with it's interesting with, got to be open minded if you want to change and if you want to grow. And obviously, as people get older, they get a little bit less open minded. They're like, "Man, I'm really good," and why doesn't the world owe me,
yeah,
this and owe me
yeah.
that? It's like, yeah, I know, fuck, I relate, but it's not the way it works.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
was
know,
at a memorial service a couple of months ago, and it was all very sad and happy all at the same time. But there was a bunch of people that I used to work with some time ago in the media business, and all they could do was talk about the inverted good old times and how there was no opportunities anymore, and I'm slightly a bit more contrarian than that. I think you know you've got all these skills, you've got all this you know IP. You just need to bend it into a different direction, and keep some kind of sort of some ambition as well, hanging on to ambition, still being ambitious.
yeah, and also, it sounds a bit woo, but trust the universe a little bit. Like you don't have all the answers. And sometimes you think you should be going left when actually you should be going right, and everything's telling you to go right, but you're like, no, no, but I always go left. That's my
Yeah,
thing. I go left.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, but just look around. Everything's telling you to go right. Maybe that's the way to go. And maybe if you go right, you'll find something that you didn't even know you were looking for. So, um, I'm a big believer in that. Something I'm sort of trying to work on is like, I'm not always in control of everything. I don't have to be. I can
yeah,
relax and see where the world's taking me. I mean, I was just talking to Malcolm before. I mean, probably the smarter thing for me would be to be sitting in an office somewhere in Auckland or Wellington, being the head of something or the CEO of something, and getting a fat check, and sitting around telling everyone how good I was. Um, I just can't do it. I just I really wish I could. I really wish someone would pay me $1 million to sit behind a desk and sit around and just tell everyone what to do. Like, that would
yeah.
be so cool. But it's just not gonna happen. and I'm still hustling today as hard as I was 40 years ago. Still hustling to get ideas off the ground, because for me, the greatest regret is having an idea and not bringing it to fruition. Like, it's not even so much making it successful. It's like seeing what happens with that idea that's the motivation for me. I did a show once. Um, we only did one episode, and it was supposed to be. I think it was ahead of its time. It was supposed to be a parody of how news had become entertainment,
Yeah.
and so I brought Tom Bradley, who obviously used to read the news in the 70s, 80s. I brought him back as a newsreader, and but what was different is he had a consultant, a female co-host, and a band. Um, and and it was really frustrating to him. And he was like, "I want to do the news," and all this chaos was going around him. That was the general concept. Uh, in my naivety, I didn't do a pilot. I just went live to air the first episode, and um, TVNZ hated it, um, and so did the critics. I looked at it and was going, "Oh, that wasn't great, but there's potential there, and I can see where I can take this." But no one else saw that, and so they said to me, "Don't." It's not that we're not going to fund that show, because that's a given. Um, it's We don't want you to ever mention that show in the halls of TVNZ again. Like, just don't even casually mention it in conversation. It was that bad. Don't even don't even sort of go, "Oh, what about, like, just please, we want to erase that show from our memory." And I was like, "Wow, okay. I'm picking up a vibe here." Um, and I said to them, I said, "But wasn't the band quite funny?" And they go, "No, they weren't funny. Nothing in that show was funny." And the band was Flight of the Conchords, and it was their first TV thing.
Yeah.
I was like, "Fuck, I thought they were funny."
Yeah, it turns out they were. Yeah.
But it was just because of the context, they decided that everything about that show was a disaster. Um, I still like that show because I could see there were some magic moments in it. Yeah, 3 within an hour, but
Yeah.
but there was something there, and so the the worst television I've ever produced in my life, by miles, the very worst show I've ever done, was the first episode of Sports Cafe. And it was so bad that when I finished, I looked around the studio, and all the cameramen would look away at me. They didn't want to catch my gaze. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And then we had a producer who was working with me, the late great Alan Thurston. And Thirsty was as crazy as I was. And as I walked past everyone that was ignoring me, he put his thumbs up and he said, "That was shit, but there's something there."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I reckon."
I've
And
just
just
I've just finished Ben Elton's autobiography, and one of the things he talks about a lot is, a lot of series and stuff like that, particularly in the comedy genre. It needs time to grow. You know, y-
yeah.
you can't just put a show up and let it, and it's going to be fixed and it's going to be set in stone. We got it. It never works like that. And of course, in media, we're in mainstream media these days. It's just too expensive to do that, and nobody can afford to take the gamble. Um,
I think
so,
it
so
I
maybe
think
that's
it's a
where independents have a better opportunity potentially.
I think it's a philosophy too. Like, you've worked in networks. So the attitude when you're working on a show with a network is, we need to make the first show work. So you put a lot of effort into marketing, you go and you do lots of interviews, there's lots of media spend and the backs of buses and everything. But the reality is, your first show is normally shit. That's the reality, because you put all this thought into it, and then you put it all out there on screen, and some of it works and some of it doesn't work. And then your second show, you probably try a little bit hard to fix the things in the first show. But the third show, you start building some momentum. And I've always liked to grow my audience rather than have a big audience for show one and then hold on to it.
Yeah.
And it's just different ways of working. So, but I suppose, when you're in a network and you put so much money into, you sort of get really worried that it won't work. And Ben Elton's so right that the most important thing you need is time. And just look at Seinfeld. I mean, Seinfeld didn't work its first season,
Yeah.
but it turned out not bad. So, but it's hard, you know, and think of it now. If you think of TVNZ, TV3, whatever it's called now, and stuff like that. I mean, they're really battling to make enough money, and so you got to understand, taking risks is hard for them.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
So that's why if you look at mainstream television around the world, it's full of reality shows, looking at houses and looking at gardens, because they know that there's a guaranteed audience for those shows. So, so that's what they're going to invest in.
yeah. No, I hear you. I guess to kind of wrap it up, really appreciative of your time. If you're looking forward, and I, not asking you to make any predictions, but what's the trajectory for guys like you or guys like me, even, or anybody in the sort of independent space trying to make content, or whatever type of content it is?
It's never been more opportunity, but at the same time, it's never been tougher. So, you make something, you put it on YouTube. So the distribution model is really easy to access. You just press upload.
Yeah.
But it's really competitive.
Yeah.
Like there's, I don't know, billions of people, but there's billions of videos. So,
Yeah, that's right.
which is good. You've got to, creatively, it just challenges you. You've got to know your audience, find your niche, and be good at it. Because the minute you're not good, and then, even then, you can make some great content. No one watches it. Like that's not unusual. And it's finding that balance of making great stuff, but also making stuff the audience wants to see.
Yeah. Just two quick questions. What are you really excited about, and what are you not so excited about?
What am I really excited about? Well, I've just sort of decided that I'm going to go boots and all into this. So I'm really excited about the new shows I'm rolling out. And there's going to be lots of them, because that's the beautiful thing about this distribution network.
Yeah.
Is, it's easy to try stuff, because, I'm not spending $100,000 an episode,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about the opportunity. And what am I not excited about? I'm not excited about the importance of eating vegetables.
I'm a vegetarian, so
Yeah,
be
I
pretty
hate
dull.
vegetables, but I know that they're important. So that's the thing that I'm really not, and particularly peas. Like if it was
Peas.
up to me, peas would be banned.
Really, I think they're pretty inoffensive, to be honest. Peas. I mean,
No,
I don't like eggplant, but there you go.
no, peas are incredibly offensive, and people sneak them in when you're not looking. So because they're small, so peas are the enemy of the world.
All right. Well, probably on that. And this is. Is there anything you would particularly want to plug, or not really? Or
No, I'm just as we're talking, I'm just going to say I need to be more vocal about the danger that peas are.
okay. Well, I'll take up that
Yeah, stay
crusade
away
for
from
you
them.
as well. Yeah.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And as always, I'll look forward to what you got coming next. It's always interesting, and always ambitious as well, which I really like. So,
And some of it
cheers.
might work.
Yeah, hopefully. Cheers, Rick.